Hello, my name is Kathy Hayes of Kathy's Report. My guest today is the Honorable Jessica O'Brien, Judge, Circuit Court of Cook County, and the Vice President of the Women's Bar, as we are taping today. However, she is going to be installed as the first Asian American woman, a history maker, to the Bar Association. Hello, and thank you for coming.
Hello, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me.
This is going to be so much fun
Yes.
because I have learned so much about you I've known you for a few years, but I've learned so much about you as you are now Vice President. But the important thing is that you will be President come June, correct?
Yes, and I'm looking forward to it. But of course, as we approach that date, I'm also making a lot of plans on the different programming, different events, and hopefully making a difference when my presidency comes along.
You have made a difference already because you've had a pretty phenomenal life just coming to this point of your career, both personally as well as professionally. Could you tell us a little bit about how you came from the Philippines here to America, as well as your travels to Illinois and some of the other exciting things you've done?
Well, thank you for saying that. When you're going through the path that I've gone through, you never really think of it as an amazing path until you stop and think about where you come from. I moved to the U.S. back in 1984 when I was only 16 years old. I shouldn't have said that because now you can calculate how old I am. But it was right after I completed high school, and my mom was living in New Jersey at that time, so I joined her. And I was here specifically to pursue, a college degree. So the first thing was for me to go to a community college so that I can take the time to assimilate the American way of life. And so I did. I applied at a community college. And when I did, they said, you know what, we need to put you in a remedial class for 2 years.
Isn't that amazing?
It was a downer, I have to admit. But at the same time, I said, okay, fine. That will give me time to get to know, get to learn the American way of life. And I did. And it was basically a review of my high school work, which it was fine because at that point I was really only just 16 or turning 17, and I completed it less than the time that they had given me. Mm-hmm. And then from there I went on to take the regular coursework, completed that within 2.5 years. So the 2 years that I was supposed to take for the remedial program, I completed it within 6 months, I think. And so then I applied to different universities. I got accepted to NYU, BU, and I ended up at BU, Boston University.
Good old Boston University.
Yes.
But you took a very unique path. The idea of going to Boston University, which is a competitive university on the East Coast, and then you decide to go into the culinary arts and management.
Yes, my dream when I came to this country was really to become an actress. My mom is a doctor, and so the first thing she said was, if you're going to pursue anything, you should pursue something that will be highly in demand. Really what she was saying was, why don't you pursue nursing? And I said, no, blood is not my thing. So I thought that hotels and always fascinated me.
Really?
If I wasn't going to be an actress, I wanted to live in a hotel, manage a hotel. So then I majored in the hospitality industry when I was in the community college. When I went to Boston University, I majored in hotel and food administration, minored in financial management. So that's what I did. I went there for 2 years. While there, I had an internship in Brussels to learn how to speak French, I suppose, and work there as well.
Wow.
And then after that, I went to Switzerland to basically learn a little bit of the culinary part of it.
That is amazing.
Yes.
I know to come over to your house for dinner soon. But you also was educated, you took your education and made it work for you. I mean, coming and integrating what you used to know as a child in the Philippines to as you're now growing into womanhood, you made it a whole new career for yourself. You kept reinventing yourself. How were you so smart at such a young age?
You know what? It's interesting when you say that, because really it's probably part of my insecurity. When you come to this country and English is really not my first language, and that was part of my growing up too is people were making fun of the way I spoke. Even adults and young kids would make fun of the way I pronounce certain words, right? So really, I was very insecure about my environment. And because of that, I wanted to be the best in whatever chosen field. So I chose hotel and restaurant. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to know the front of the house and back of the house because I didn't want people to make fun of me anymore, right?
Wow.
So because I wanted to be a manager of a hotel, I wanted to know the back of the house, or hotel or restaurant. I wanted to know the back of the house in the restaurant. So then I said, you know what? For myself to be marketable, I want to know what the chefs do. Not necessarily want to become a chef. So then I wanted to enroll in one of the best schools.
And you did that.
I did, and I enrolled after I got my bachelor's degree. I went on to go to Cordon Bleu in London. Originally, that's the original culinary school,
Yes.
Cordon Bleu. But then they also have one in Paris, but I didn't want to take 2 years just to learn French because I thought that would set me back and I felt like I was getting old. So then I went to London. I went to it was a program for 6 months. Instead of 2 years, it was condensed to 6 months, which really they shouldn't have accepted me because that was for chefs. People who already been cooking,
Yes.
but then they were looking for certification to be promoted. And so I went there, and it was the hardest program that I've ever completed.
I can imagine.
I literally, my first half, I cried every day.
Really?
It was that hard because
I can imagine.
was right next to all these chefs in Paris and all over Europe.
Right.
And my teacher used to yell at me. But then half of the semester, she sat me down and she said, you are going to fail if you don't get your stuff together.
Oh, wow.
It was really that tough. So what I did was during that break, I hired a chef to basically train me.
Wow.
Retrain me, basically, for like the half of the semester. And so I got my stuff together, and I passed it with B+.
That is amazing.
Which, quite frankly, the culinary school was harder than law school.
Wow. And we're going to talk about law school
Yes.
because that drivenness that you have has served you so well, whether it came out of insecurities or not. The fact that you're so driven and you are so good at managing all of those insecurities have really served you well, and probably why you're such a star today, because a lot of folks, because I've checked, are amazed by the things that you've done, not only professionally but personally, giving back to the community and everything else. So what we're going to do is take a quick break and come right back. Hi, and thank you for coming back. We are continuing our conversation with the Honorable Jessica O'Brien, talking about the Women's Bar Association and the many strides that she has made working here in Chicago. Now, you did go to John Marshall Law School, and you were very determined there as well, with a JD as well as a master's too, actually, right?
Yes.
So tell me about your experience at John Marshall, because I know that you're very involved with the alumni organization there, and you've been involved with them for quite some time.
Yes, so I decided to go to law school after having worked in the hotel and restaurant industry at Caesars Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And while there, I wanted to distinguish myself. I realized after, I guess, my third semester that there were so many lawyers out there. And I wanted to distinguish myself. And what better way to do that than to also pursue a joint degree in, have my JD and an LLM in tax, or master's in tax. Nobody wanted to touch tax, but I did. I had a financial management background, so I wanted to pursue that. So I completed that in 3 years. And yes, I was determined. In the middle of law school, I had my daughter.
Wow.
My my gift. And
Yes.
of course, I'm thinking to myself, I need to get a job as soon as possible and distinguish myself because I have to feed this child, right?
Absolutely. They
So-
demand food
Yes.
all the time.
And what was amazing, though, was after I had given birth to my daughter, I had all this energy. And I got Dean's List after I gave birth to her, and I was more involved in the different organizations, the student organizations. I was the president of the Asian Law Student Association. I was the president of the Public Interest Law Student Association. I was the editor-in-chief for our school newspaper. I was the vice president for the entertainment law. So I was doing all these things because again, back to just distinguishing myself from the other students. And also it goes back to the insecurity factor where I just have to be the best in what I'm pursuing. And that was all, I think, the underlying factor that drove me to do what I did.
Well, it absolutely empowered you because everywhere the community has been so positive in responding to you. You have led issues about diversity, you've led issues about women being stronger, you've led issues about women having access, which is pretty phenomenal for a young woman who came here and once you were here at 16, barely knew the language to master it. That is amazing. So what did John Marshall provide you as a lawyer? What skills did they provide you to be an outstanding advocate for women, outstanding advocate for communities?
We talked about diversity initiatives, and John Marshall was absolutely, basically, my foundation. Without John Marshall, my initiatives would have died. I think many of us have so many ideas. We think about a lot of things because from whether it's an outgrowth from our own experiences, and sometimes if we don't have the right people, the right organization that back us, then the idea just falls apart, right? I was very fortunate that my alma mater was very supportive of my ideas. And really that diversity initiative, I attribute that to John Marshall's support. Because of them, it grew into this now Unity Dinner, and now we have the Diversity Scholarship Foundation, which is basically awarding different scholarships to diverse students all over the state. So what John Marshall taught me is that with the right support, you can accomplish whatever it is that you want. And as far as skills are concerned, John Marshall is very good about preparing their students to be ready to practice. And I think, you hear the term practice-ready law school. It really is. They're very good at teaching their students how to write, which is very important. Those writing skills, the litigation skills, and being brave and just pursuing whatever it is that you want. And really, we live in Chicago. Connections is also very important. So they provide that networking opportunities for students, which I encourage all law students to do that. Because sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know, but really, for me, it has to be the combination of both.
Absolutely. Many times people have told me, what you know keeps you in the room. Who you know may get you to the room, but you have to have a knowledge base that is concrete so that you can stay in the room. And the fact that you've been so outreaching to many different communities. I have been to the diversity dinner. It has grown every year. Many of the bar associations have been very complimentary, and as far as being a part of and buying into, I think that's pretty phenomenal. How did you get them? Because you were one of the original people organizing that. How did you get the different bar associations to? Because you sit on many of them, to buy into this diversity.
I think, generally speaking, most attorneys embrace the idea of diversity. Sometimes they don't want to be reminded of it, quite frankly. I mean, that's just, I'm speaking heart to heart. Most lawyers and judges embrace it. But you have to be very strategic about planning these events, because really you have to bring them together for a very specific cause, and that is to diversify the legal community. And if you get them to understand that each and every one of us can benefit from getting different perspectives. And so that was the idea, is that bringing people from different backgrounds, because they too have something to say to make our world better. And it was timely. I mean, look at us now. We're global.
Yes.
We should have different perspective and different cultural education, because really without it, I don't know how we could grow. And it was I think when it was introduced to the community, it was timely. And thank goodness, because here we're 12 years later and how global we are now. I mean, law firms can't survive without having lawyers from different, from people from China. I mean, look at China, it just grew.
Absolutely.
And so I think that it's always letting them know what is in it for them. It's the educational aspect of the programming, the diversity programming, that I think encourage them to participate.
And I think it also not only encourages them, but gives them some relevant with the world that everything is on 24 hours a day. You have to be able to relate to not just the person sitting next to you, but the person in many countries all over the universe, all over this world.
Right.
So it's very important for us to be able to expose ourselves to them. Now, the Women's Bar is all about exposure. The Women's Bar was founded on having informing and empowering women lawyers to be able to have access to help the law community for women and communities throughout. So when we come back to this segment, we're going to talk about the Women's Bar and your new exciting role that's coming up as the first president, Asian president, for that role in 101-year history, which is a pretty magnificent history. 9 women from 100 years ago to how many members do you have at this point?
Well, we have a reach of, over thousands of people.
I know.
As far as active members, unfortunately, we're still improving that, because our focus has been on events and also different educational programs. But that would be one of my initiatives, is to grow a membership. But for purposes of our reach, it has been massive, and we've really grown.
For many years.
Yes.
Okay, so when we come right back, we're going to talk about the Women's Bar and the upcoming events and the Women's Symposium that you did, the Women in Law Symposium that you did, which I hear was phenomenal.
It was a great event that we had in January. That was a vision of our current president, and I thought it was a great vision.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to replicate that during my year.
Hi, thank you for returning. We're here to talk about the Women's Bar Association of Illinois. We are here with the Vice President, the Honorable Jessica O'Brien, who's also going to speak with us about her 10-year that is coming up in June, being installed as the President. Thank you. Could you tell me a little bit more about the Women's Bar and the Women in Law Symposium? Many of the lawyers that I have run into said that it was a phenomenal event, and they learned a lot that day. They were very excited about it, as they are for many of the events with the Women's Bar. But give us some of your input and view on how the Women's Bar has helped not just women throughout Illinois, but has helped you through your legal career.
The Women's Bar has helped me in my career from different perspectives. Personally, I'm kind of an outsider of Chicago because, well, first of all, I was born and raised in the Philippines and then moved to New Jersey and then went to school in Boston and then went back to New Jersey again and then came here for law school. So in that regard, I'm an outsider. And so when I went out there in the legal world, my first job was an associate at a mid-sized firm, and all I did was work. And I really did feel isolated, different from when I was in law school, where I was so immersed in everything that I was doing with the different organizations. I had contacts with everybody, organizing and leading and being a part of a community.
Very big community.
Yes, but then when I started my legal career, I was working so much as an associate for a mid-sized firm that I was not as involved in the legal community, and I really felt isolated. And so I decided to pursue litigation with the government. I was working for the Department of Revenue. And when I was working for the government, I had time to be involved. And so the women's bar, to me, became, I was trying to make it my home, as well as this was like my mainstream home, so to speak. But I was also involved in the Filipino community. You know, I was being mentored by a very good friend of mine, Aurora, who was encouraging me to pursue the presidency of the Filipino American Bar Association, which I did, and we've grown that. And that's basically when I became president of the Filipino American Bar. That's when we planned that unity dinner. Okay, so in the meantime, here I was forming very important friendships with the women's bar, and you know, as your friendships with people grow, you have a little bit more confidence, and that's really one of the most important things that I had developed while pursuing the leadership role in the women's bar. And it also helped me to learn the different issues that women face, and as well as the need for really sisterhood, which we need to develop, but with a bigger group, including the different groups and different cultures, different race, the same way that I've done with the Diversity Scholarship Foundation or the Unity Dinner. So my theme, my substantive theme, is basically assimilating or integrating the women's bar with the business community, that's the business side of me, the judiciary, and other organizations. And when I talk about other organizations, I'm talking about labor unions, not-for-profits, because at the end of the day, our members also are looking to grow their business, which, if you read all the statistics, women lawyers are lagging in that regard, because when you look at the law firms, the GCs, they're led mostly by men. So I'd like to help out our women our attorneys, obviously, to hopefully move up to leadership positions and grow that statistics in our favor. Now, as far as my theme is concerned, my tagline is "Leave no woman behind."
Absolutely.
Yes, because I think it's important to bring in, if all women of all colors, all race, if we all come together as one, I think we are a formidable, force that.
And has a miraculous change on how the communities are viewed and how they facilitate. It is very important, and you talked about your mentorship from the Filipino Bar and how you were mentored to become a leader there, and many of your other mentorships when you came here to America, the Culinary Institute, many of the other places. Mentorship is probably a very big issue, especially with the women's bar and young women lawyers coming out of law school today. Are you all still mentoring women in that regard?
Absolutely. The Women's Bar has a very strong mentorship program that is actually very structured. And so we have that for the past few years, and we'll continue to do that during my presidency as well. There are other committees that I'm forming, which is also a mentorship-like module where I formed I'm going to form an in-house, in-house committee where we're going to bring in general counsel to hopefully help out young lawyers and also senior lawyers who are in law firms that might want to transition to corporations, and also politics. If they're looking for mentors or lawyers in politics, we're hoping to have that for them as well. And we are going to have a Women's Bar Leadership Institute, where it's really more community-based for me, where hopefully our attendants will learn a little bit more about the community. The health, the education,
absolutely,
the labor, the different issues. It's more with the idea that you lead with a purpose And the purpose is to learn your community and serve your community, as well as also developing business.
And the community will definitely have great gains from those brilliant and bright minds that you have been working with for the past few years. Some of the women at the Women's Bar have been phenomenal. I've met many of them through you and some of the other organizations. And while we're sitting here in such a diverse community, it seems to be evolving each and every year, that your focus or your themes keep up with the headlines of today, where it comes to labor issues, where it comes to empowerment issues. So the empowerment that you've learned from the Philippines coming here, you've also given as a gift to the Women's Bar.
It is my responsibility and my duty to give back to the ones who are behind me and around me. I think it's important because I wouldn't be where I am today without the help and the mentorship that I received from people, not just from the Women's Bar, but different bar organizations that I'm involved in. I don't know if you know, but I'm also serving as a board of governors for the Illinois State Bar Association, which is the largest bar organization. And I've been involved with the Chicago Bar Association and different bar organizations. I've led the Asian American Bar Associations. These associations have been my bedrock in moving forward and giving back to the community, because I think it's important. It's the only way, and there's not many Asians. I mean, although I'm very proud to serve as the first Asian American president of the Women's Bar Association, it's a huge responsibility as well. But I think it's important for colored women to know that the Women's Bar is very inclusive. We want all of you. You just need to come and join us. If you join us, we will make it your home. Yes. And I think it's very important.
And if they want to contact you, they can contact you on the web at the Women's Bar Association.
I believe in open access, so they can always email me directly or call me in my cell, really. Text me. I'm a good texter. It's O'Brien at sbcglobal.net.
Wonderful. And for those young ladies who are inspired to go to law school, they should also contact the Women's Bar, because they may find a mentor there.
Yes, they will definitely find a mentor there. And this is not a plug, but I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. Becoming a lawyer has changed my life. And the insecure me, although I sometimes did that, I still feel that, but I've used that as a vehicle to do more things. Becoming a lawyer has made me a different person, a better person, and an improved person since I had moved to this country. I encourage everyone to consider the profession, the legal profession.
Amazing. And she has always been amazing. Thank you so very much for joining us and learning a little bit more about the Women's Bar Association of Illinois. Please feel free to contact the Bar Association. Please feel free to contact me and let me know what you think about this program, and if you have any other interests that you want to know about. Have a good evening.